When I said that I would date the bus owner, a lot of y'all heard something different. Some of you heard the following: I'm too good for a bus driver. The only thing is, y'all made that part up. I was never talking about money at all. Iyanla, check me. Show me the error of my ways. Tell me how I might be missing it, because I might be.
Okay.
Tell the truth about what you feel and stop pointing fingers and blaming about what people did and didn't do.
You know, I watched that interview between Iyanla and Eboni the second it came out because I'm obsessed with Iyanla, and lately she's been a bit absent from the public eye, and I keep looking up her older stuff. So the algorithm knows how much I'm hungry for Iyanla content. So the second that interview came up, it just came up on my feeds, and I watched it while having breakfast, and I thought, wow, how incredible. Especially the way Iyanla was telling Eboni that women today are like men in skirts, and they're having this very thought-provoking discussion, and I thought, this is brilliant. I want to do a lip-sync story where I play both of them, because how amazing would it be that a drag artist, a man literally in a skirt, is playing both of them as they talk about femininity and masculinity and toxic masculinity and what it is to be female. But then we all know what happened and when that interview went viral, and it became about elitism and money and how she talks down to black men. And then I was like, oh, should I still comment about it? And on one level, it was even more reason to comment about it because now it became popular, and of course I want my channel to grow. But then actually one of my subscribers commented and said something quite like wise, like, do you really want to go there? Because people are really fighting as they talk about this subject. And I thought, okay, let this simmer and figure out how I want to talk about it. And it finally came to me. I want to talk about it in the frame of wounded feminine energy. And when I say wounded feminine energy, it's the struggle to remain in your feminine energy. It's the struggle to feel safe enough to be open and receptive. Because what is feminine energy? You know, we all have feminine and masculine energy, right? And feminine energy is characterized by openness, receptivity, vulnerability, healing, compassion, forgiveness, harmony, intuition. And masculine energy is characterized by leadership, providing, caretaking, logic, and reason, as opposed to the intuition, which is the more feminine energy. And I think that's what Iyanla was talking about when she was telling Eboni that women today are moving away from their divine femininity, is that they're afraid to embrace those feminine traits that are all about restoration and healing and gentleness.
Oh, no, not here, not today.
Okay, I hear you articulating, Iyanla, this masculine energy traits, the competitiveness, the assertiveness. Tell me how you would frame feminine traits. Aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive, not assertive. It's okay for a woman to be assertive.
But of course, what Eboni was saying was also true, because it is hard for women to cultivate those feminine traits as they have to compete in the workplace and fight and use all those masculine traits to make it in the workplace. You know, traditionally it was only men who are afraid to embrace the feminine traits, which also exist in men, of course. But nowadays, women are also resisting that divine femininity because society glorifies masculine traits like the hustle. You know, these days, women are encouraged and given incentive to speak in those terms like, I'm all about the money, don't mess with my coin. I'm all about the work, I'm all about the grind. And I can't help but think of that movie Hustlers with J-Lo, which is based on a true story about those women, strippers, who would drug the men and take their money.
Jobs, please.
What if somebody calls the cops?
And says what?
And it was presented as if it's okay. I mean, because traditionally men were oppressing women, and now women, almost like in this kind of like act of revenge, are allowed, you know, to do things like that. But like, how is that okay? Also, a little tangent. That movie sucks. Oof. Like, it's not even like good, bad. Like, you enjoy watching it. It's terrible. Zero character development, and characters are behaving and talking in ways that don't make sense. Like, they change their motivation from scene to scene. And also, like, J-Lo, I think she hired all those actresses that make her look good, because that girl, that Asian actress who's also playing a stripper, she looks like an orphan child standing next to J-Lo. How is this woman a stripper? Like, what? But J-Lo was like, and nobody's gonna steal my spotlight. Anyway, sorry about the tangent. Yeah, so it almost feels like these days, women, in their effort to fight the female archetypes of like, women need to stay at home and only cook, and that's all they're good for, which they have every right to fight, of course. But in that fight of female archetypes, they ended up fighting actual feminine energy and resisting it. So I think what ends up happening is that women were like cornered into this position of being defensive and on the attack, because historically there's this systemic patriarchy that has oppressed women. So almost like in this fight against that, and the fight against these suffocating female archetypes, women end up going in this kind of like defensive mode all the time. And you really see that in the way Eboni reacted to the backlash about her bus driver comment. Because let's backtrack. In the initial interview between Eboni and Iyanla,
I do want you to speak, Iyanla, to how women need to, position ourselves so that we can be in our divinity, so we can have our crowns right, how we can create and not build, when some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
If
a bus
he owns
driver?
the bus. If he owns
No.
it. If he owns the bus.
See, that's
Iyanla.
the problem.
which I thought was fine. Like, it was this sassy comment, but actually reflective of how a lot of people feel. But she didn't own it. And when she got the backlash against that, immediately she went into this defensive mode.
So let me be clear. First, I am a professional disruptor. So Backlash is my business. And I will always take it on the chin for the sake of advancing the work, conversation, or movement.
And she became even more condescending, saying that that comment about her refusing to date a bus driver who didn't own the bus is about elevating the black man, which is like, girl.
So when you're talking about all this brother this and the black man this and the white supremacy this and this, that, and the other, that's all to the side of how you felt about that quote unquote average job, right?
I understand it's clear from the energy that there is an emotional attack that you felt was on black men, the working class, and black America. I'm going to hold the space for the hurt feelings around that. But more than I care about hurt feelings, I care about providing my people with facts and information that say that the current way of life for the majority of black Americans is not serving us.
Really? I mean, just own what you said. Like, we are all a product of the conditioning in this world. And the conditioning made us, maybe prejudiced or maybe a little bit elitist or whatever the case may be. But she kind of like made it into this noble thing that she refuses to date a bus driver. Like, come on, girl. But I completely understand actually the position that Eboni's in, because even though obviously I'm not a woman, but this, divine feminine energy is in all of us, and being, not your traditional masculine man, I've embraced it, but I also struggle with, embracing those feminine traits of, not the feminine traits, but because those I embrace quite easily on the stage because they're almost comical and like a caricature, but the true feminine energy of being open and receptive and just kind of surrendering to the moment. I struggle with those a lot because, like Eboni, I'm always in this kind of like defense on the attack. I have to provide, I have to take care of myself, because if I let go, God knows what catastrophe will happen. But actually, what is wrong with this traditionally feminine role of having someone provide for you and take care of you? That's actually beautiful, especially if that's what you want.
So in a recent interview with our dear friends over at the Breakfast Club, that went very viral for very good reason, you said that women are being trained to be men in skirts. I will acknowledge, I will say I was triggered. I was a hit dog, and I hollered to the entire production team to get you here today, because I actually think you're right. I think you're right, Iyanla. I do think that I'll just speak for myself vulnerably. When I think of a masculine posture and what I would expect a man to do in my life, two things come top of mind, and they are provide and they are protect.
But the question becomes, do you actually enjoy being taken care of, which is your right to enjoy? Or are you leaning on a man because you're incapable of taking care of yourself? Basically, are you just cornered into that because you have no other choice? Because that's when resentment builds up, and that's when you shouldn't lean on a man and have him take care of you. But if you actually enjoy it, why not embrace that role? And the answer to that question can be different from person to person or from woman to woman. But when you answer that question, you have to know where that answer is coming from. Is it coming from a negative or a positive place? Is it coming from this kind of like bitter and resentful and just kind of like being on guard kind of position? Or are you just kind of, is it coming from a calm, feminine place? Like when Eboni was telling Iyanla about where her resistance to being feminine comes from.
And when my lived experience, and I think I'm still relatively young, I guess, but I'm 40 in September. So, I've had some relationships. And I've yet to find a man who has shown, I mean, this includes even my father, who was absent. I've yet to have a male energy that provided or protected me consistently ever. So I think that I have taken on the reins to protect and provide for myself. Because what I'm not going to do, Iyanla, is be without. Baby, it's not happening.
Be without what?
So
Without what?
be without protection. Be without protection.
So it comes from a negative place. And by negative, I mean this place of lack, of fear. It's not a choice. Like, she had to become that way.
My father wasn't there, and as a result, I feel like nobody will ever accept me as I am. That's why I sleep around. I just want a man to accept me because my father didn't. That's the truth. Tell it.
I actually really appreciated Eboni in that original interview. And if you watch the full interview, you'll really see that Eboni was very open to, telling Iyanla, like, check me. And she was saying, am I doing something wrong? I need help. I need your advice. But I think where she went wrong is when the backlash came, she became extremely hostile and really condescending.
I was never talking about money at all. I was talking about black ownership. But some of y'all made it about money.
She was really conflating issues by saying, I wrote a book called Bet on Black, and my history speaks for itself, that I've always been on the side of black people. And that may be true, and I'm sure is true. But this is different from the condescending tone, which is what bothered everybody.
I'm talking about ownership, black enterprise, and entrepreneurship, because really I am talking about black liberation. And if you read my book, you'll understand why.
And I would say Eboni was presenting kind of wounded masculine energy, which is this need to control.
Let me be very clear as to what I'm not saying. No, y'all got to listen to this.
And this wounded masculine energy for me is like, when it comes up in women, it comes up in this kind of like, they need to be the super mom or the super wife, or they need to be busy all the time.
What you said is, you want to encourage and you want to do this. I do the same thing without putting people down.
I'm not putting people down. I'm being very honest.
I think you are, and people have been saying, I don't think you're listening. Like, as much as you talk, you're not listening to what people are saying.
I'm listening. I'm not bothered by that, though. And so when we are so caught up with feelings, because we don't want people to feel bad, I think it's stagnant.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Eboni K Williams.
That's it.
And I think another day-to-day example of how people have confusing opinions about femininity is makeup. And the question is, do you wear makeup because you feel you have to as a woman, or because you enjoy wearing makeup? Because if you enjoy wearing makeup, then have at it, girl. And I come at this from a very privileged position, being a man who actually puts on makeup for a living. And for me, I really enjoy it. Of course, I don't feel the pressure that I have to wear it, and I don't wear it in my everyday life. But I enjoy the hell out of it, this kind of like playing dress up. And I think if you're a woman and you enjoy that, who cares if that's traditionally female or it's an archetype of femininity. But for me, drag is a lot more than just dressing up as a woman, because I also play a lot of men. And speaking of man drag, Eckhart Tolle, who I've played several times, has something very interesting to say about the subject of makeup.
So you may apply makeup, especially if you are a woman. Men, I don't know, some men might do it too, I don't know. And there's no reason to think, should I really, or shouldn't I, or there's something wrong with me if I do it. Don't complicate life too much. If you want to apply makeup, but while you apply makeup, feel the underlying presence.
And speaking of Eckhart Tolle, he often speaks about the yin and the yang, which is another way of saying feminine and masculine energy. Because the yin is actually the feminine energy, and the yang, the more active one, is the masculine energy. And we all have both in us. And no one falls exactly in the middle, because different situations call for different parts of us. And actually, a good way to understand this yin and yang energy in a practical way, if you go to yoga studios, there are yin yoga classes and yang yoga classes. The yang is like the very active ones where you're literally getting a workout, and the yin is about where you get deep stretches. And by the way, very interestingly, I started doing yin yoga, and I did it for a stretch of 4 years at a studio right after my burnout, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, which by the way happened as a result of too much masculine energy, working very hard, competing, just like the grind, the hustle. And then my body, almost when it crashed, it needed something very calm, and I started doing yin yoga, which I recommend for everybody. And yin yoga is this, you just do deep stretches that you hold each position for almost 5 to 7 minutes. So it's actually very challenging and confronting, but it requires kind of an inner balance. And I did it for a very long time at a studio, and I continue to do it now on my own. But too much of anything is not good, even yin. For example, a way that yin shows up is in the empathy for minorities or people who are oppressed or people of color or people who are gay, which is, of course, great to have. But when you take that in excess, would become extreme political correctness, where you cannot say anything, where if you disagree, it becomes equal to hate speech. Which again, just like women resisting their feminine energy, this is a reaction to something historic, like a systemic oppression of everything that is yin. And I think as a conclusion, we all need to honor both sides of ourselves. You know, these days, everyone is shitting on toxic masculinity, as they should, because the toxic part, we should definitely eradicate. But masculine energy is actually good because it allows you to go after things, to achieve, to lead. But too much of that is also not good because then it leads you to a burnout. And you know, nobody has like a 50-50 balance of feminine and masculine energy. You need to figure out what the balance is for yourself. And the way to do that, I think, is to feel all your feelings. Like, not intellectualize them and think about how you feel or analyze it. Actually, feel the parts of you that want to be open and receptive and the parts of you that want to achieve and go out and get things and compete. Just always become aware of it, and aware of it in your body. Again, move from your head into your body so that you're really present with everything that comes up. But most importantly, you guys, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.